Here's the recording of page 35 and 36. Unearthing Sumer. The people who study our human odyssey, who try to understand what happened in the past and why, are called historians. History is the story of change over time. It's full of puzzles waiting to be solved and secrets waiting to be unearthed. In order to be a good historian, you have to be part detective, ready to hunt down all kinds of clues that may have been hiding for thousands of years. You have to dig up the evidence. You have to act a bit like a scientist, too. You need to make sharp observations, come up with logical theories, and then test your ideas. Do those ideas explain what we know about the past? Do they help us understand the evidence we have about ancient times? It's tricky because you can't set up a nice, neat experiment in a laboratory. The past is much more slippery than that. Good historians also have to be something of a storyteller, ready to use imagination to recount the past. But history is not fiction. In history, you study real characters, settings, and events. What inspired these people? What made them think as they did? Why did they build this temple or bury that ship or paint those figures on the cave walls? Above all, historians are always ready to follow a trail of questions. You often start out with one question and start digging to find an answer. You might be literally digging up old ruins or doing research as you dig through books and papers. Pretty soon you run across interesting clues, and those clues raise more questions. Suddenly you realize that you've asked the wrong question to begin with, or that your new questions are a lot more interesting. And off you go, digging to find more answers and questions. So if you like following trails, piecing together puzzles, and discovering tales of high adventure, you've come to the right place. Let's spend a little time looking at how the mysteries of history get solved. To do that, we're going to go back more than 5,000 years to southern Mesopotamia, to Sumer, which was probably the first civilization on Earth. The Sumerians accomplished all kinds of marvelous things, but over time they were forgotten. Just 150 years ago, no one even knew their name or that such people had ever lived. Even when Sumer was finally rediscovered, it was found by accident. Let's see how this first civilization was unearthed. And let's take a look at some of these pictures here. Top, this is a delicate ostrich egg shell vase. Was remarkably found intact in a Sumerian tomb. And then here, archaeologists search for clues to the past at a dig in Syria. And then where's the evidence? Historians and archaeologists use logic and imagination to reach their conclusions, but their conclusions have to be based on hard evidence. The word evidence comes from the Latin words that mean what has been seen. Written accounts, objects, buildings, and even people's memories of their experiences are some of the evidence that guides students to the past. The forgotten people. Today, we know many things about the once forgotten Sumerians. We know something about their cities and ideas, their temples and gods, how they looked and lived. We know about the food they ate, the songs they sang, and the language they spoke. We know all this because historians and archaeologists kept digging into the past. What's the difference between a historian and an archaeologist? They both solve mysteries of ages past, and they both use evidence, clues from the past. But they focused on different kinds of clues. Historians learn about the past in three ways: by studying written records, such as old letters, diaries, and books; by looking at objects from the past, such as weapons, paintings, or tools; and in more recent days, by listening to oral histories, spoken accounts from people who lived at the time. Archaeologists, on the other hand, are the diggers. They burrow into the Earth's surface and scientifically study artifacts. Artifacts are objects that people made and left behind, such as tools, pots, jewelry, musical instruments, and the remains of ancient buildings. Artifacts can tell us a lot about ancient societies that left no written record. The discovery of Sumer is the story of how historians and archaeologists put together many clues to solve a great mystery. It's a story with many twists and turns. In fact, the people who discovered Sumer started by looking for traces of other ancient civilizations, but they kept running into clues that pointed back to an even older culture. They followed the trail of questions and clues further into the past, and eventually it led to Sumer. All right, that's the end of the reading of pages 35 and 36.